Live from Bryant-Denny Stadium with special guests, feature stories, and a comprehensive look at Alabama's upcoming game. This is Crimson Tide Kickoff on WVUA 23.
And good morning, everybody. Happy game day. I'm Gary Harris, and this is Crimson Tide Kickoff. Let's go. As always, we'll begin with our Bama headlines.
For the latest on the Crimson Tide, you don't need the newspaper. You need Bama Headlines.
Well, Alabama's 5-0, but the Tide hasn't faced an offense quite like the one run by Mississippi State. Mike Leach in the air raid. They're different. You saw them just light up LSU in their first game, but since that time, their offense has been dismal. Still, they have the ability to make big plays, and Alabama's defense has been vulnerable to big plays sometimes this season. So that's certainly something to watch in tonight's game. Nick Saban's birthday. Coach Saban celebrates his 69th birthday today on Halloween, and he'll coach on the field tonight on his birthday against Mississippi State. This is just the second time in his 25-year coaching career that he's coached on his birthday. The other was 1998 when he was coaching at Michigan State. Of course, Alabama usually has a bye week and would have had a bye week on Halloween this year had the schedule not been changed. That year in 1998, Saban celebrated turning 47 by leading the Spartans past Northwestern 29-5. Well, we got a stacked show, including a look back at which Tide players will be counted on to help fill the void following Jalen Waddle's injury, as well as interviews with Tide baseball coach Brad Bohannon and Mississippi State stat guru, former Bulldog quarterback Matt Wyatt, will join us in our Behind Enemy Lines segment. Well, on Monday, University of Alabama head coach Nick Saban revealed that Jalen Waddle underwent successful surgery on his ankle, injured on the opening kickoff against the Tennessee Vols last weekend. Before the injury, Waddle was in the midst of a stellar junior season with 25 catches for 557 yards and 4 touchdowns. He was averaging a whopping 139.5 receiving yards a game. Saban said that you can't replace a talent like Jalen Waddle. You just can't. He's special. Not many of him like him in the world. But that Slade Bolden and others are talented and are capable of stepping in, doing the job, and making some plays themselves.
It's hard, seeing J-Dub go down. He's one of my good teammates, one of my good friends. That's always tough, and this is not the way I wanted to get this opportunity, of course. And saw Waddle today, and he's smiling and laughing and joking as always, and it was good to see a smile on his face. But, yeah, I'm thankful for the opportunity. I'm just here to get better and improve each and every day.
Another guy that might be counted on, Javon Baker, the former 4-star recruit, considered one of the top high school receivers in the country from suburban Atlanta, hopes that he'll get to showcase his skills maybe as early as tonight. While Baker hasn't had a great deal of playing time, he is already getting some accolades from his teammates.
I haven't matched up against him, but he's a great player. He has great routes, and he has probably the greatest hands on the team. He has strong hands as a player. He reminds me of almost like a Amari Cooper type of guy.
That's high praise. In the return game, keep an eye on number 24, Trey Sanders. He had his strongest game of the season last week against Tennessee, including this 20-yard run. When asked about Sanders this week, Coach Saban mentioned his explosiveness, which could possibly be a fit in the return game. Well, Mississippi State head coach Mike Leach is known for his use of the air raid offense. The scheme was certainly working in week 1. Bulldogs quarterback K.J. Costello attempted 60 passes and threw for an SEC record 623 yards. He also had 5 touchdowns in that 44-34 win over the Bayou Bengals. Since then, though, there have been less hits and more misses for this Bulldoggo. The Dogs have dropped 3 straight and already have committed 12 turnovers this season. Alabama head coach Nick Saban will not be thrown off by past struggles. He knows this offense poses a threat to the Bama defense. They're going to have to work harder.
When you're that spread out on the field and they've got 5 guys going out for a pass all the time and you're horizontally stretched like you are, when you play man-to-man, if somebody gets beat, you got an issue. And when you play zone, you got a better chance to play inside out and break on the ball.
Here are some notes for tonight's game. It'll be the 150th regular season SEC game for Coach Nick Saban. He'll become only the 7th coach all time with 250 games coached overall and 150 regular season SEC games. The others, boy, this is a who's who. Georgia's Vince Dooley, Florida's Steve Spurrier, Auburn's Shug Jordan, Ole Miss legend John Vaught, and of course, the great Paul Bear Bryant. The Tide has scored at least 30 points in 14 consecutive games, which ties the longest streak in conference history. Alabama looks to be in line to capture the record outright tonight. Bama needs to be aware of the Bulldogs' passing attack, though. As we mentioned, despite MSU's struggles, they're still averaging more than 357 yards passing a game. That's fifth best in the FBS. Of course, the Bulldogs like to throw it over 50 times as well. So, you know, kind of like death by 1,000 paper cuts if they've got it working. All right, what about the weather? Well, CTKO's Christopher Pipkin is live outside Bryant-Denny Stadium with a look at our game day forecast.
Yeah,
looks great right now, Christopher.
Oh, it is. It's just beautiful out here, Gary. You really couldn't ask for a better game day forecast, especially on Halloween. Happy Halloween to everyone, too. It's hard to believe we have a football game going on Halloween on top of this beautiful weather, but I'll go ahead and show you what it looks like across much of the state right now. In terms of temperatures, a lot of us still hanging on to those 60s and upper 50s off towards the northern part of the state. Coleman up there still sitting at 56 with an important part here in Tuscaloosa. We're in the mid-60s. We're going to hit the 70-degree mark fairly soon. Wouldn't be surprised to hit that at least over the next hour or so. Beautiful skies all across the southeast. You can see not even a cloud on our satellite and radar, really just signifying that a lot of the SEC are seeing some beautiful conditions across much of the state. Again, that's thanks to high pressure off towards our north. And that's going to continue to at least trail into this evening and overnight. Temperatures will start to go down just a bit, but we've got some warmer air moving in, so we're not going to stay as cold as we were, at least starting off this morning. Temperatures falling down into those 50s, around halftime about the upper 50s, and then final will be about the mid-50s. But go ahead and pack that light jacket. You never know, you could get a little cold out there, but definitely at least wear something warm going in because it's going to be overnight. Believe it or not, we've got some cooler temperatures. So Gary, just beautiful conditions out here. Really couldn't ask for a better Halloween forecast.
All right, thank you, Christopher. We look forward to checking in with you later on in the show. Well, coming up on CTKO, Alabama soccer is hoping to build some momentum heading into the SEC tournament. We'll check in on what the Tide was able to do last night against Texas A&M. Also, different injuries carry different risk in terms of a season outlook. So how much does the loss of Jalen Waddle hurt Alabama's championship chances? We'll take a closer look. And Mike Leach always has something interesting to say. He comments on Kylan Hill after the opt-out for the rest of the football season. Stick around. More Crimson Tide Kickoff to come.
You're watching Crimson Tide Kickoff on WVUA 23.
Well, Alabama soccer had a final home match last night as they faced Texas A&M on senior night. The Aggies got on the board within the first minute as Taylor Pound scored off the corner kick from Amina Lopez. Alabama managed to put some shots on the net, but simply couldn't get anything past the Aggies goalkeeper, Kenna Caldwell. She made saves on all 7 of the shots that she faced. Texas A&M would add one in the back of the net in the 67th minute as Laney Carroll put it past Alabama goalkeeper McKinley Crone. The Aggies would go on to win 2-0. Alabama will be back in action a week from Sunday as they finish off the regular season at Auburn. And welcome back into Crimson Tide Kickoff. I'm Gary Harris. Obviously, the story of the week for Alabama football is Jalen Waddle, most likely out for the rest of the season. His absence has an impact on not just the Crimson Tide, but Bama's opponents and how they'll prepare to face Alabama. William Galloway joins us now with more.
Good morning, Gary, and happy game day. Well, we know Jalen Waddle's impact is significant and extends well beyond the numbers that he puts up each and every week. I talked to Matt Wyatt about his performance and his impact, and when it comes to the play calling, I mean, the ability to take a shot on second and short has given Alabama an edge all season long. I mean, losing 1/3 of the wide receiver trifecta is certain to impact the way Steve Sarkisian makes a call in a particular set. Matt told me that the threat that Waddle possessed in the open field is what made him so dangerous.
Jalen Waddle is one of those, whether you're an Alabama fan or not, or whether you care to watch the whole game or not, you really want to see him return kicks. You really want to turn on the television and watch him return a punt and catch the ball. So I just hate it for all of us that we don't get to watch that guy play this year. I think it moves the production somewhere else. There are certain situations in games where you're taking that big shot to Waddle knowing you're going to get a one-on-one matchup, where now you may get that matchup, but you're not as sure about taking the shot. And does the ball go somewhere else? Or do we play more conservatively and just go, we got to have longer scoring drives at certain times?
We'll hear more from Matt later in the show on Behind Enemy Lines. For now, reporting live outside Bryant-Denny Stadium for CTKO, I'm William Galloway.
Thanks a lot, William. We look forward to getting back with you and Matt Wyatt. He really knows the game. Well, a lot has changed since Mississippi State's shocking Week 1 win over LSU. 3 consecutive losses haven't done much for the Bulldogs' confidence and maybe had an effect on the team depth chart as well. Mississippi State has had several players leave the program, opting out or entering the transfer portal in recent days, and one of them could be running back Kylan Hill. On an SEC teleconference this week, MSU head coach Mike Leach talked about Hill, saying, quote, "I heard he was opting out to prepare for the NFL. I haven't talked to him. We wish him the best."
You know, coming in, we have certain rules and expectations that you expect to be followed, and you know, either they abide by them or they don't, but, you know, they adjust it. I'd be surprised if we don't lose more. I mean, so, you know, if it says you're stunned or nervous, I mean, you better brace yourself because we might lose more.
Well, it appears that former Alabama wide receiver Terrell Shavers is on the move again. You know, he graduated from UA where he didn't get the kind of playing time that he'd hoped for. He transferred to Mississippi State where he was eligible immediately. He caught a touchdown in Week 1 against LSU, and it looked like everything was going to be great for Shavers in Starkville. Not so fast, my friends. It went downhill from there, and he has entered the transfer portal again. At some point, you got to get somewhere and stick, but Terrell Shavers' career at Mississippi State, a short one, is already over, it appears. Well, still to come on CTKO, we catch up with Alabama baseball coach Brad Bohannon as he looks forward to regrouping and building on this past spring's success, even though the season was cut short. And Jalen Waddle's season-ending injury has certainly caused problems for Alabama. CTKO's Julia Westerman tells us how Alabama will try to fill the void that he leaves. Stick around, more CTKO is on the way.
It's been quite an honor for me, but over the years, I've developed quite a few real close relationships with a lot of players. Right now, Harvey Arenas and I are big, but we see each other, we run, hug, and carry. Harvey's just a real great friend. And then we had a little guy named Ronzel Washington, walk-on, never gonna play. But Ronzel lives in Washington, D.C. right now, and he and I talk quite a bit. Stabler and I, we weren't really close or anything, but we knew each other pretty well. And Kenny, by the way, a lot of people don't realize Kenny was a heck of a baseball player, great pitcher. It's so many, well, like right now, got Freddie Roach over there. Freddie and I were real good friends. There's just so many, it'd be kind of hard to say. But right now, Harvey Arenas is, if I had to have one, I reckon it'd be Harvey.
That's cool. He and Javi are so close. But I'll tell you this, every player that's come through that program, heck, everybody that knows Eddie Conyers loves the man. That's a testament to his character and the kind of person he is. I've never heard anyone, and don't expect to ever hear anyone, say a bad word about Eddie Conyers. Welcome back to Crimson Tide Kickoff inside our WVOA 23 studios inside the Digital Media Center in Bryant-Denny Stadium. I'm Gary Harris. Well, Mississippi State's Mike Leach is an interesting guy, quirky. The pirate he's known as. He's made it known everywhere that he's coached that he's different and he doesn't mind it. Here's CTKO's Julia Westerman with more on the Leachisms that make him stand out. Julia?
Good morning, Gary. Yeah, Mike Leach is definitely one of the more dynamic coaches in the SEC. We've seen the videos from Washington State, Texas Tech, all of his other stops along the way where he's sometimes lost track of what the original question was for him. We'll see what he does tonight, but he definitely brought his personality to Starkville with him in January when he was hired and announced.
The thought that went into it, the malicious intent, maybe my taste and view on, Football and sports are a little different than others.
I was wondering if you've thought about whether or not you'll be bringing your class on insurgent warfare and football tactics to Mississippi State.
I'll tell you what, that would be fun. I don't have a perfect answer for that. I've been here for, I don't know if 24 hours, maybe it's heading towards 24 hours.
Once we look at that post-game press conference tonight after Mississippi State takes on Alabama, we'll see if he has any new Leachisms to bring to the table. Live for CTKO, I'm Julia Westerman.
Thanks, Julia. You know, Alabama baseball was off to a 16-1 start this past spring with the opening SEC series against Missouri on deck when the plug got pulled on the season due to the COVID-19 pandemic. It was a tough deal for a team that felt like its time had arrived, but that's in the rearview mirror now, and Alabama baseball is looking forward to 2021. Here's CTKO's Tatum Vaught with Alabama head baseball coach Brad Bohannon.
Thanks, Gary. Earlier this week, baseball's Fall Classic wrapped up, but there's plenty more fall ball for Alabama baseball. I'm joined by Crimson Tide's head coach Brad Bohannon. Good morning, Coach.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm doing great.
Awesome. So you are currently in fall ball. How important is that, and what are you hoping to get accomplished?
Well, it's really important, especially, considering the last few months. I've said from the get-go, we've got great kids from great families. We've got a lot of talent, but we really need to get better at playing baseball. And, I don't think anybody in our program or around college baseball played enough, throughout the spring and summer. So our kids did a great job of training during the pandemic, but, it's just not quite the same as playing the game. So we've had a great fall team segment, made a lot of progress the last couple of weeks, and we need to finish strong.
Great. And how excited are you about this roster that you've put together? I know you've been recruiting great, so how's that going to be this year?
Yeah, I love our team. I love our players. There's a lot of future pros out there. We got a lot of just good bodies, good athletes, power, twitch, stuff on the mound, velocity. So it's an awesome group. The one thing that we don't have is much SEC experience. In a year in college baseball where it's going to be as old as ever, we've got 2 seniors and 2 juniors. So we've got 20 freshmen, that have never played in an SEC game. So I love everything about this group except the lack of SEC experience.
Right. And who are some of the players specifically that you will be looking for to be leaders this season?
Well, I certainly hope that happens organically, but we do have some guys that have been around the block. So positionally, Sam Prater, Drew Williamson, and TJ Reeves are guys that have been in the program for 3 or 4 years. And I know that they have a really positive influence on the younger guys and on the team, away from the field. And on the pitching staff, Tyler Ross and Connor Shamblin are a couple of guys, Chase Lee, that have been with us for multiple years, Brock Guffey, that are all going to pitch a lot and have really strong intangibles as well.
Awesome. And then you were off to a 16-1 start this past spring and about to open the conference schedule against Mizzou when the season canceled due to coronavirus. How have the players dealt with the disappointment of that?
It was hard initially. When we got back together this fall, we all just kind of agreed that, hey, it is what it is, and we got to look forward. That's all you can do, and it's really a good life lesson. And I kind of feel bad looking back. It was so traumatic. I mean, we were just in tears, and our season was canceled. And now that we have a few months ahead to look back, you're like, wow, we're just such a small piece in such a big puzzle. So it was obviously really disappointing, especially for the older players and the staff, because that was a 3-year process of the rebuild. And there's no doubt in our mind we got over the hump. But all we can do is look forward and try to make this year better than last year.
And recruiting seems to be going absolutely fantastic with all those new freshmen. What has been the key to your recruiting success?
Well, I think Alabama is a place that should have really good players. If you look over a 40 or 50-year period, Alabama is a baseball program that is a top 10 or 15 program in the country. And we've got tremendous resources athletically. We've got a great national brand, awesome campus life. So, we just have to do a good job of picking the right ones. But Alabama's had a lot of great baseball players over the last 50 years, and we should have good players here.
And then how has the support for the program from the fans and supporters been since you arrived?
Our fans have been amazing. Gosh, they've just been so patient and so positive, a lot more patient and probably more positive than I've been at times. So I can't thank them enough. And, I feel such a duty to them to put a really strong product on the field. Our fans deserve a winner. They deserve a great product. And I can't wait to see the Joe pack the sprint because, with whatever rules we're allowed, because we're going to have a good club.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Coach. We appreciate it. Alabama baseball has 2 weeks left of fall practice. Stay tuned for CTKO updates on fall ball, as well as fast approaching spring sports season for the Crimson Tide kickoff. Tatum Vaught, back to you, Gary.
Thank you so much, Tatum. I love me some Coach Bo, man. The dude just gets it. He's a heck of a coach. Alabama volleyball last night in Gainesville fell to number 4 Florida in 3 sets, 25-18, 25-22, 25-18. Bama drops to 0-3 on the season. The same 2 teams will play again this afternoon in Gainesville at 2 o'clock Central Time. Florida's really good, but hopefully Alabama, can get a set or 2 today and make it a little more interesting than getting swept last night in 3 sets. Well, coming up on CTKO, Alabama is, a team volleyball-wise that is looking to get better. And so is Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin. He has not come into the league quietly as a head coach. He really went off on officiating this past week in regards to the SEC officials. We'll have that story coming up on Crimson Tide Kickoff.
To see it, it's just 2 years in a row we lost a great player who was probably the most popular player on the team. It just in terms of being a good teammate and being liked by his teammates. Tua was that way last year, and Jalen's that way this year, and you just hate it for him because they're such great competitors and they mean so much to their team and their teammates.
You do hate it, and Alabama's had a string of players get injured versus Tennessee the last few years, and some of them have been significant losses, certainly Waddle, that's for sure. In a normal year, Alabama would be off this weekend. It would be their bye. But now with the change in the schedule due to coronavirus, Mississippi State comes to town this evening. Last year in Starkville is when the Tide lost Tua Tagovailoa for the season. So let's keep our fingers crossed that tonight is a safe game for both teams and we don't have any injuries. Well, Waddle's absence is not one that's going to go unnoticed for the rest of the season, obviously. Here's Julia Westerman with more on what the Crimson Tide needs to do to fill that void.
Well, Gary, with as much depth as Alabama has at receiver, it should not be hard to replace number 17, although replace may not be the right word. Waddle had 557 yards and 4 touchdowns through the Tide's first 5 games this season and served as the main kickoff and punt returner. In terms of replacing him, Nick Saban already said that's something they aren't really going to be able to do, comparing the situation the team is in to one of losing someone like Allen Iverson. There's plenty of young talent on the team to step into Waddle's shoes, but Saban wants to focus on the things they do well, rather than trying to create replicas of who they lost.
Slade's really quick. A lot of guys like Slade, become very effective slot kind of players because they're quick out of a break. They got good initial quickness, really good hands, very smart and heady in terms of their instincts and their ability to make quick decisions. Javon is a big catch radius. He's got really good hands, very physical player. I think with our young guys, the challenge with them has been you guys have to be able to go out there and know what to do it with confidence, and get some consistency in performance.
Alabama has the options, but not having such a dynamic player like Waddle in its arsenal is going to take some getting used to. Live for CTKO, I'm Julia Westerman.
Thanks, Julia. You're just sick that Waddle's not going to be here the rest of the season. Not just for Alabama, but like I said earlier, for college football, period. A dynamic guy like that, heck, I think he was a Heisman Trophy candidate, is going to be missed. Well, going into this COVID season, this looked like a promising weekend with a lot of ranked matchups, like LSU and Auburn, for instance. But that's not the case for all these games now. CTKO's Matthew Travis has more in this week's edition of Around the SEC.
That's right, Gary. Out of the 6 games taking place today, there is only one single-digit spread, being the game between LSU and Auburn on the Plains. As for the others, the most inflated spread is the game taking place right here in Tuscaloosa, as Alabama is a 30.5-point favorite against Mississippi State. One of the reasons these spreads are so inflated is due to the quarterback questions among several teams. Georgia will be in Lexington as a double-digit favorite against Kentucky in a game where both teams are looking to bounce back. Georgia will be sticking with quarterback Stetson Bennett, but that is not the case for Big Blue, as we will likely see Joey Gatewood get his first start for the Wildcats. Auburn and LSU were both top 15 teams coming into the season, but that is no longer the case. LSU is another team dealing with some quarterback questions. Miles Brennan is still recovering from a lower body injury, and with that, TJ Finley is likely in line for another start. The team hopes Finley plays as well as last week when he led LSU to a win over South Carolina. 3 weeks and 37 positive COVID tests later, the Florida Gators are ready to play. They host Missouri as a double-digit favorite tonight. Missouri is coming off of 2 consecutive wins as they beat LSU 3 weeks ago and Kentucky last week. Finally, any preview of Ole Miss football must start by talking about Lane Kiffin and his Twitter account. Coach Kiffin was fined $25,000 last week after comments he made about the officials in their game against Auburn. Kiffin took to Twitter following his fine, saying he will be paying it completely in pennies, but wasn't quite sure how many pennies make up $25,000. Ole Miss will be in Nashville taking on Vanderbilt, who will be looking for their first win of the season. In all honesty, most eyes will likely be headed for Lane Kiffin's Twitter account following the game than the game itself. That's going to do it for this week's edition of Around the SEC. Reporting for Crimson Tide Kickoff, I'm Matthew Travis. Back to you.
Thanks, Matthew. Some good stuff right there. The full SEC schedule, let's take a look at it. One game already in progress. Number 5 Georgia at Kentucky this afternoon. Auburn hosts LSU in the CBS game of the week. And Ole Miss travels to Nashville to take on winless Vanderbilt. Everything else happens under the lights on Halloween. MSU, Alabama at 6 p.m. at Bryant-Denny. Arkansas and Texas A&M, plus Missouri at Florida coming up at 6:30. Still to come on CTKO, we'll hear what Mississippi State players have to say about the upcoming matchup with the Crimson Tide. And also this week's Burn Point. We'll be back with much more here on CTKO and WVUA 23 after this timeout. Welcome back to Crimson Tide Kickoff. I'm Gary Harris, and it's time for another edition of the Burn Point with University of Alabama Athletics Director Greg Byrne. Today we're talking about money because it's a reality in the world and in this country, and it's a reality in athletics departments. Alabama in the middle of a huge fundraising campaign, the Crimson Standard, and then all of a sudden here comes a coronavirus pandemic. And sports as we know it came to a screeching halt in March, and for University of Alabama Athletic Department officials, primarily Greg Byrne, it's been a big challenge, but you are trying to equip yourselves with the best way to handle this, and you've got the Crimson Core Fund underway. Tell us about that.
Yeah, obviously, it's been a very challenging time for so many industries, so many people across the country, across the world because of the pandemic. We're not alone there. And so we have about 350 employees. We have a lot of student workers that we have here, but most importantly, we have 650 approximately student athletes. And we're here for them to be educated, for them to have a great athletic experience, and then develop personally. And so with the change in what took place at the end of last year, basketball and our spring sports, then into this fall, it's had a major shakeup on our economics. We announced publicly that we had a $75 million revenue shortfall approximately for this year. And so we immediately froze our budget and have had about 22% reductions in operating costs. We have had a hiring freeze, and so just since March, we've had 10 positions leave. We have not replaced any of them, and we're trying to find efficiencies wherever we can as a program. And so, but one of the things was we know how much our athletic department means to our community, to our university, to the state, and to our fans everywhere. And so if people were in a position to where they could keep some of their ticket money in our program to help us survive this year, we ask that they do that. And the response has been really good. And it's there to help our student athletes from a scholarship standpoint, from a nutrition standpoint, from a mental health standpoint. All the resources that we're collecting here are going to go directly to those programs to make sure the experience for our student athletes during these challenging times can be as steady and strong as possible.
Yeah.
And that's what we're committed to doing.
Absolutely. And I wanted to add to that because, to be clear on the Crimson Core, it is to keep the athletes' experience, as you said, as normal as possible under these difficult times. This money isn't being asked for building funds or, as you said, for salaries or anything like that. It's really just to minimize the impact of the revenue losses on the student athletes' experience here at the University of Alabama, right?
Correct. That's what it's going for. And we obviously are still raising money for the Crimson Standard, our capital campaign. And we've been fortunate to have some people continue to support it through all these challenging times. But at the same time, too, we want to make sure if somebody comes in and says, hey, I've got X amount of dollars, I'd like to help for my tickets, we're making sure that that's going towards our Crimson Core program to help support our student athletes through this time. We've had some adjustments a little bit in summer school, but overall, what we've been able to do from a nutrition, from a academic support standpoint, all those different things, it's been very steady. And that's because of this great program that we have here at Alabama and the incredible support from our fans everywhere.
And you've got a priority program in place for those that give to the Crimson Core Fund. They'll receive priority points, correct?
That's correct. So for every $100 donated, they'll get 3 points towards their Tide Pride priority points. So it's a nice addition for them too.
And obviously appreciation from all of the folks there at the University of Alabama Athletics Department, primarily the student athletes. That's going to do it for this week's Byrne Point. For Greg Byrne, I'm Gary Harris. Thanks for watching. Crimson Tide Kickoff. We'll be right back after this. And welcome back into Crimson Tide Kickoff. I'm Gary Harris. As Alabama and Mississippi State prepare for the 105th all-time meeting between the two schools, we take a closer look at the game from the opposite sideline. William Galloway joins us live outside Bryant-Denny Stadium again with more on this week's Behind Enemy Lines.
Well, hello again, Gary. And yes, I talked to Matt Wyatt this week, and of course you heard from him earlier, and he had a lot to say about this game from an X's and O's standpoint. For Mississippi State, it really all starts with Mike Leach.
So there's an interesting dynamic of laid back, he is who he is in the media, and then with the team, about as old school coach as it gets. So we're still kind of learning the ropes with Mike, but so far it's an interesting ride.
That ride has brought Mississippi State to a 1-3 record at this point in the season. We all saw the air raid on display for the Bulldogs in the Week 1 win over LSU, but in Week 2 versus Arkansas, Barry Odom's defense tried a new approach.
Let's back up and let's drop 8, only rush 3. Yes, they may have more time to throw. We'll try to get pressure with 3, but we're going to keep those receivers in front of us and make them read our zone coverage and see if they'll make a mistake. So instead of giving State the opportunity to go on a 5-play scoring drive, we're going to force State to go on a 15-play scoring drive. And if they execute well enough with no spring practice and no offseason and a brand new offense, they can execute everything well enough to score on us in 15 plays. We'll just have to shake their hand.
With all the success teams have had playing Mississippi State in a zone defense, it begs the question, will Alabama follow suit?
I'll be absolutely shocked if more than 50% of the time they're in man coverage looks. I think it'll be way less than 50%, somewhere in that 30-70 range. There'll be about 30% of the time where there may be some situations. It could be every now and then State may get in a short yardage situation, and Alabama will jump into man-to-man there, knowing you're going to try to get rid of the ball quick, and we'll try to blitz and get the ball out of your hand.
The Bulldogs have nothing to lose coming into a game like this. Matt said there's one key for this game, and it sounds radical.
Every drive State has must end in a kick of some sort. Extra points, field goals, or punts. Punts are good in a game like this, especially when your defense is playing so well and has so much confidence. Give them a chance.
Alabama has won 12 games in a row over Mississippi State, and kickoff is tonight at 6 p.m. on ESPN behind me inside Bryant-Denny Stadium. Reporting live for CTKO, I'm William Galloway.
Great job, William. Love hearing from the former Prattville Lion And former Mississippi State Bulldog quarterback Matt Wyatt, he can really break it down, get into the X's and O's, and makes it easy to understand. He's good. Well, Mississippi State was off last week, so they spent the past 2 weeks preparing for this game. Mike Leach has faced Alabama once in his career, back in the 2006 Cotton Bowl when he was at Texas Tech. We all know a lot's changed since then. Mississippi State is second in the SEC in sacks per game this year. The Bulldog defense averages 3 hits on the quarterback where they get him down each game. They finished last season with 28 total sacks as a team, but defensive coordinator Zach Arnett knows it will take a lot more than sacks to slow down this Alabama offense.
You can't take away, if you sell out to take away one thing, they got 3 other ways they can hurt you. They're so explosive on offense. I mean, offensive line is as good as I've ever seen. Obviously, you see the skill and explosiveness at wide receiver. And then, Najee Harris, I remember coming out of high school because I was coaching in California. He's up in the Bay Area. He was a phenomenal recruit coming out of high school, and he's only lived up to the billing and more. I mean, he is a big physical back who's got home run capability and fights for the extra yards. Tremendous offense.
Arnett's got his work cut out for him. I mean, I can imagine being a defensive coordinator trying to game plan against this Alabama offense. Can you? Still to come on CTKO, Lynn Brooks talks with Alabama's Chancellor, Finis St. John. That's going to be an interesting conversation. You definitely want to stick around for that here on CTKO. And birthday wishes for the birthday boy. Find out some of the unique aspects of Coach Saban's pursuit of scoring an SEC victory on his 69th birthday. That's coming up when Crimson Tide Kickoff returns.
Welcome back to Crimson Tide Kickoff. I'm Lynn Brooks alongside Finis St. John, who is the Chancellor for the University of Alabama system. So glad you could be with us.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here.
I know it is a busy time, and you deal with the system as a whole, not just the University of Alabama. So give us a report card on the system. How we doing? How's it look?
Well, as I'm sure your viewers know, the University of Alabama system is the University of Alabama, UAB, UAH, and the health system at UAB in Birmingham. So it's a big, complicated organization, but so far things are going very well. It's been an unusual year, as you may have noticed.
We have all certainly noticed, and what makes this a very unusual year, of course, is COVID-19, this coronavirus pandemic, which has certainly hit education in every possible way that it can get hit. What is happening right now in the system as you look at this pandemic and try to figure out where to go moving forward?
Well, we spent all spring and summer after this started trying to devise a plan so that we could have our universities be open, and so that we could have things like football season. So far, those plans are working. It hasn't been perfect. It hasn't been easy. There have been a lot of things about it that we don't like any more than the students and faculty and staff and fans and citizens like, but we have tried to do the best we could to balance the health and safety concerns with the interests of all of our people. And we're all ready for it to be over and behind us.
And you get to deal with challenges across the system. What are you hearing from leaders at the highest levels about this pandemic? What are their concerns as they try to just put one foot in front of the other, not knowing what the future looks like? What are you hearing?
Well, we have some of the most prominent epidemiologists and researchers at UAB, and we talk to them all the time. They watch things like numbers and hospitalization rates. All of those things go into the decisions that we're trying to make. I know a lot of students are unhappy because we don't have full classrooms, but we felt like that's been important to allow us to stay open. There were some trying times when we had numbers that were alarming, but we were ready for it with a good plan. We had spaces for students to isolate. We had adequate, ample testing so that we knew what we were dealing with. A lot of schools didn't have that. So we think we were ahead of the curve, and a lot of universities never even started their semester in person. They basically waved the white flag before classes even started. So there were some tough decisions along the way. There were a lot of people saying, you cannot do this. But we felt like we had confidence in our plan and stayed with it, and so far it has worked.
Well, speaking of people saying you can't do this, a lot of folks said that about football.
Yeah.
We saw different schools all across the country making a variety of decisions. You know, it's run the gamut. The very fact that we are experiencing football, and now we're experiencing it in a very different way than what we're accustomed, but the very fact that there is football. I mean, we're doing a kickoff show today.
That's
so
right.
The very fact that there is football has been a major undertaking.
Yeah. That's been, a subject of great interest to a lot of people, not just people here in Alabama, but people all over the country. I've been asked that question more than any other, as I'm sure you have and everybody else. Are we going to have football this fall? And there were times when that seemed really unlikely.
Right.
It just seemed like it was going to be something that was not sustainable, but very proud of the way the SEC and the university, all working together with the medical folks, so far have done it in a way that has not been detrimental to the student athletes, has not been detrimental to the staffs or the fans. Some other conferences took different approaches, and I'm not sure they're very proud of their approaches at this point, but we'll see. It will be a great thing for all of us if we can finish this season.
Oh, absolutely. And we have just a little bit of time left. I know there's a series of meetings coming up November 12th and 13th. Just top of mind, some issues, topics you think will be coming up at those?
Well, the Board of Trustees meets in a couple weeks. They meet 5 times a year. They set the policy and the vision and the goals of the whole system. So they consider every aspect of the administration of our universities and the health system. So they have had to consider the effect of this pandemic on things like budget and academic planning and construction planning. And so those are always ongoing issues that are dealt with at every board meeting and every day between board meetings.
Fess, we're going to be talking about this for a while, aren't we? This is not, hey, a vaccine comes and we're finished with this. We're going to be talking about this for a while, you think?
I'm afraid you're right. I don't think that many of the medical experts would say that we're close to the end of it as far as the way it affects people's everyday lives. I think we're going to be dealing with it for a while. I want to thank our students and our parents and our teachers and our staff folks for how resilient they have been, how cooperative they have been under circumstances that they don't like and we don't like either. But they have been great cooperative supporters, and we're doing our best for them.
Yes, they certainly deserve a big thank you, and thank you for being with us today. We so appreciate it and want you to stick around for more Crimson Tide Kickoff.
Thank you very much, Lynn.
Happy birthday, Coach Saban! That's hysterical.
The Crimsonettes wishing the Crimson Tide football coach happy 69th birthday. Welcome back to Crimson Tide Kickoff. I'm Gary Harris. The birthday party kicks off at 6 p.m. inside Bryant-Denny Stadium. Coach will be celebrating his 69th on the field. That hasn't happened very often throughout history. Coach Saban will be the 5th Alabama coach to coach on his birthday. As I said earlier, this will be his 2nd time to do it. He also did it at Michigan State back in 1998. With a win against Northwestern. Some of that Nick Saban coaching path is parallel to a coach like Bear Bryant, who, like Saban, coached twice on his birthday. Coach went 1-1. He lost to Ole Miss in '76 and beat Georgia Tech in '81. But who will take the win on this deal? Will Coach Saban go 2-0 on his birthday? Like I said, Coach Bryant lost in '76, won in '82. A win tonight will make Saban undefeated in that realm. For the other 3 coaches who have had games on their birthday, it's kind of a mixed bag with a 3-2 record. The most recent birthday win was back in 1989. Coach Bill Curry beat Tennessee in a wild win at Legion Field. Frank Thomas has a win against Georgia Tech back in 1941, and Coach D.V. Graves lost to Mississippi State way back in 1913. All right, it is a beautiful day outside, and the anticipation, I think is for it to remain this way all day long. Let's check in again with Christopher Pipkin.
Hey, good afternoon to you, Gary. Actually, early morning at least. We're going to be in the afternoon here fairly soon. Temperatures are very nice. I mean, we really couldn't ask for a better day here across much of Alabama. You can see we're actually at 66 degrees right now here in Tuscaloosa, still hanging on at least to those lower 60s in the northern part of the state, but we'll be in those 70s here fairly soon. Won't take us too much longer. We'll actually be in those, and it definitely is feeling fairly nice out there. Temperatures, happy Halloween, by the way. Doesn't feel like Halloween because temperatures will warm up again and once again in those 70s. Here's a quick game day forecast again. Kickoff looks like we'll be in those mid-60s. Going to keep on to those clear skies and sun setting a little earlier today too. Tomorrow's daylight savings times, Gary. So everybody enjoy the game as much as you can.
Thank you, Christopher. That's going to wrap it up for Crimson Tide Kickoff. A reminder that William Galloway will be with you tonight on the news at 10 with a recap of Alabama-Mississippi State, including Coach Saban's comments. For all of us here at WVUA 23 Crimson Tide Kickoff, I'm Gary Harris. Roll Tide.